Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're specifically going to talk about the fourth section of the secret adventure that, in my humble opinion, exists within the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle starter set. This adventure, in my humble opinion, exists in the art and not in the text. And in my humble opinion, this Dragons of Stormwreck Isle clearly tells a distinct story about features a distinct adventure highlighting the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons, 1980 Dungeons and Dragons Saturday morning cartoon Protagonists. Okay, so we're going to talk about the fourth section of the adventure here, and it's Dozy Artifact A06, A16, and R01. All right, so in A06, what we see Runara speaking to Aleena and Presto and Eric, presenting herself to them. And I'm sorry, not Eric, but Hank, okay? And basically at this point, Maya Lee has Presto, his three compatriots who are helping to get Sheila set up in order to go back to Earth, and that's Eric, Diana, and it's Eric, Diana, and Hank, as well as Aleena the cleric, right? And at this point, I think Maya Lee has helped to get all of them onto Forgotten Realms, right? And they're specifically at Stormwreck Isle, which is on the Forgotten Realms, right? So everybody's here, right? And basically, Presto and his party are here, and they are specifically searching Stormwreck Isle for some type of a magical reservoir to use to pull all their power together to punch a hole through Forgotten Realms straight back to Earth to allow Sheila to return. Okay, and that's going to be Sheila, Bobby, and Uni. Okay, and so Runara discovers Presto and his party on the island and says, "Hey, and she presents herself as her adult bronze dragon self." And she says, in my humble opinion, she encounters them and she says the following. She says, "Hey, this is Stormwreck Isle. A whole bunch of dragons died up in here. This is way too dangerous a place for you humans to be. Humans and collected assortment to be. Y'all's can yeet. Y'all's can get going, right? Because this ain't the place for you." Presto then very respectfully says, "Hey, thank you for presenting yourself, and we understand that this is a site of many dragon deaths, and actually that's why we're here. We have a good friend, and we need to get her from this realm, this Faerun, Forgotten Realms, back to Earth, and we think that there's a magical reservoir here that we can use, and we don't mean any disrespect to you." And also Presto at this point, he's a Strixhaven graduate, right? So he knows that the metallic dragons are typically good aligned, and that the chromatic dragons are typically evil aligned, right? So he knows that Renard's just not going to bite his head off and destroy him, right? And so he's very respectful, and he says, "Hey, no disrespect, but we're here to get a job done." And there's a tense moment, and so at this point, Presto, is not able, Runar's not going to have it like saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to let you use these dragon magical death reservoirs to punch a hole through, Forgotten Realms back to Earth." And so she says, "No, and actually Presto says, 'Hey, Runara, we're glad we have met you. Can you help?' Right?" And the reality is, Runara's like, "No, I'm not helping you." But Presto is able to remove him and the party from her presence and say, "We're going to show complete respect while we're here, but we're going to go on our way." And because she's good aligned, she doesn't destroy the whole party, right? She doesn't even attack them, right? But she doesn't help them, right? And so that's what happens in A06. So you have, you have that going forward, and at that point, there's this situation where, there's this point where Presto is really like, "Hey, what is going to happen? What are we going to do here as player characters, right? And the reality is, actually, he discusses this with the player characters to say, are you guys ready to move forward and continue, with this? Because we're going to need to, you can already see this is incredibly deadly. All of this is getting very, very dangerous, right? Okay, so, and then he's checking in with the player characters because they're there to aid, right? So at this point, the player characters, and again, each point along the way, the player characters can say, this is too much, we don't want to die, they get a sense there's a lot of power here, right? So the next thing happens is let's say the player characters choose, at any point, the player characters can break with Presto, and this is important to understand. If the player characters do not aid Presto, his mission fails, period, right? And because that's how Dungeons and Dragons works, right? Like, the player characters are the center. They choose the winners and the losers, right? So at this point, the player characters, let's assume they continue forward with Presto. At this point, they go out into Stormwreck Isle, and they're adventuring all over to find this reservoir. Well, they're going to come across the Myconid community, and that's what we see next. Is we see Hank and Diana going into the Myconid caves in order to get something. Now, what do they get? Well, I think that's pretty clear. Basically, once the Myconid community is found, Aleena gets very excited, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm going to go down and deal with the Myconid community, and I'm going to get a bunch of spores, and I'm going to convert those spores to healing potions and to spell components, right? Hank, realizing what's happened, immediately goes to Aleena and goes, yeah, I see is what you want to do. I get it, right? I get that you want to, to go get those spell components and get what you need for the healing potions. But I really need you to stay right with Eric. And the reason why is you seem to have a calming presence with him. And right now he's very on edge, very angry, and frankly, just, really having a hard time with the death of Lorne. Okay, who we talked about in the last video. And so at that point, Aleena's like, yeah, I would like to get these, but I need them. So I'm gonna part off. And Hank goes, chill. Me and Diana will go down into the Myconid cave and we'll get the spores you need. Okay, so Hank and Diana go down there. They deal with the spore servant octopus, right? They defeat it. They don't kill it, right? And at that point, they leave the Myconid cave and they go back out. And Hank and Diana go back out into Stormwreck Isle, and guess where they go next? R01, right? Hank and Diana are returning the spores to Aleena, and guess who they run across? That's right, they run across the adult blue dragon, and he attacks them with a savage ferocity and attempts to kill them, right? Diana and Hank, they don't play. They got energy weapons. They got weapons that were given directly from Dungeon Master. They are not able to defeat the adult blue dragon, who is the same adult blue dragon who shows up in season 3, episode 24, The Time Lost, that fought Starfire 19 in the F-15. And so in my humble opinion, what happens next is they encounter this dragon, right? And they escape it, and they go back, right? And they escape the adult blue dragon, and they get back to Aleena. They give her the spores, and they say to the whole group, oh my gosh, we encountered this adult blue dragon. And that's what happens in the 4th section of the secret adventure, which in my humble opinion is titled The Cloaked Thief's Return. All that's what I see when I look at, that once I've excavated, once I've interpreted, and once I've sequenced, that's how this secret adventure is shaped, right? And we have one more section to close the adventure out, which we'll be getting to soon. Thanks for your patience, going through all this. I know there's a lot here, but guess what? If any of this was confusing or difficult to follow, check the link below. There's a nice TLDR written version, just in case you had any trouble tracking this in my incredibly organized videos. Thank you very much for letting me share this with you. I'm excited. I think I almost have this all the way done, right? So that I can run it for my player characters. This, in my humble opinion, All that's what in those 3 images. Do you think I'm sequencing it correct? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.